Well, if it isn't our American friend that is moving to Canada. I see you have your hockey jersey on. Looks like you're immersing yourself in Canadian culture. I bet you didn't know that in Canada, icing is more than topping on a cake. And what about sweeping? We're not talking about dust control. Much like there are many differences to sports in Canada, there are also many differences to being a sports fan in Canada. If you plan to adapt, then this film series continues to be for you. So you're going to be a Canadian. Part 2, The Canadian Sports Fan. Getting ready for the big game? Are you sure you have everything you need? You've obviously thought this through, but there is something you overlooked. The game is in Canada. You'll need to add a few things to your list. For starters, you'll need a parka, and of course a toque, and mitts. Driving to the game? Don't forget a lock de-icer and a shovel, and jumper cables. And just in case, cab fare or a bus pass. That's better. Now you're ready for action. What's that? The game is in summer? Then you can leave the parka at home. But remember your mosquito repellent. And do bring a jacket, preferably one that has a thermal lining, with a toque and mitts. Now that you're dressed, let's peek in on some Canadian fans and learn how to fit in.
Shoot! 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 Sweep! 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 Sweep!
I totally prefer CFL football. 3 downs rule!
Yes!
Yes! I will not argue.
Like 3.
No
Is
way.
there another way?
This guy.
There is no other way.
Like 3.
Those last comments refer to Canada's Football League, a minor league at best. Many will claim to prefer it to the NFL, which is, of course, ludicrous. Our advice? Be nice and just let it go. Let the Canadians have their little big league. Getting excited to cheer on your team? Just one small problem. Canadian sports teams are rarely number 1. While you may mean well, it is unfair to put such unrealistic expectations on a Canadian sports team. That's better. Go team! If a Canadian team is number 1, chances are that they are playing hockey, or curling, or basketball on ice. Here is a list of all the number 1 Canadian sports teams in the past century. Here is the same list, but excluding any sport played on ice. Since you'll now be accustomed to losing, you'll want to learn to cope like a Canadian. Here are some common excuses.
If it hadn't been for the officiating, they definitely would have won.
Officiators.
I'm sorry for being so right.
They were.
Don't be sorry.
Such an eloquent speaker.
They were wrong.
If only they'd hung on for the last few minutes, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man, but they would have just...
Definitely.
Last few.
That's the last.
Well, you know, if it hadn't been for the weather.
Yeah. What is
Don't even start on the weather.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
should do something
That
about
will never
that.
finish.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for all those injuries.
Sure.
Great insight.
Yeah.
Great insight.
Sound.
Breakable
Jeez.
human
You
bodies.
couldn't
Done with a broken collar either.
You got bogged down.
If only it had been a home game.
Yeah.
Home ice advantage.
You can't expect to win if you're not at home? That makes no sense.
They,
It's fixed.
they would know
Sleep
that.
in your own bed.
Know it.
The other guys just made him feel bad.
If only they'd been playing on ice.
Yes!
Oh, yeah, nice.
That's
They would have the advantage.
just thinking that.
I would play that game.
They would
Frozen
win.
water.
Something was missing.
You did.
I did.
You
Like
used
not
those
steam,
exact
not
words.
water.
No.
This afternoon.
Ice.
Ice.
So much smoother.
Maybe they ran out of money. The sixth element.
As we've mentioned, Canadians can be quite successful at sports, provided they are played on ice. In other words, sports no one else in the world actually cares about. For example, curling. What's that? You've never heard of curling? Don't worry, no one has. But when Canadians win at curling, they like to think it's important. And you should too. Why? Because you're going to be a Canadian!